This is a special program about the effects of the atomic bomb on Hiroshima. Viewer discretion advised. You are watching Profonde TV on PrincetonTV.org.
Hiroshima, Japan. Today, Hiroshima is a thriving, bustling city of over 1 million people on Japan's southwest coast. The heart of the city and its soul is its Peace Memorial Park, located between two of the city's rivers, commemorating the dropping of the atomic bomb on the city in 1945. This cenotaph contains the names of all of those who perished on that day, and the names of those who died afterwards, and continue to die even today from the effects of the bomb. As life moves on, it seems inconceivable to even imagine the horror of that moment. 8:15 a.m., August 6, 1945, when the light of 10,000 suns broke above the rivers. Perhaps as now, a father and son sat on the water's edge, looking up at the morning sky. In the first billionth of a second, the temperature at the core of the blast reached millions of degrees centigrade. A searing flash of light and heat expanded across the sky, instantly vaporizing, burning, and charring beyond recognition thousands of human beings. Within a 1-kilometer radius of the epicenter of the blast, the heat was intense enough to boil off internal organs in a fraction of a second. One man, resting on some steps, disappeared immediately, leaving only a faint shadow scorched into the stone. All this took place in the first 2 or 3 seconds. There followed almost simultaneously an enormous shock wave, traveling at the speed of sound, smashing everything in sight. Raging, wind-whipped firestorms broke out all over the city. Black, deadly, radioactive rain fell from the sky. In a seeming moment, Hiroshima had ceased to exist. The center of the city was leveled, and more than 60,000 buildings were destroyed. The human suffering was unimaginable. Perhaps 80,000 men, women, and children died that first day. 140,000 by the end of the year, many from horrible burns and radiation. Three days after Hiroshima, a second atomic bomb was dropped on the city of Nagasaki, indiscriminately killing 70,000 more men, women, and children. Michiko Yamaoka is one of the hibakusha, or survivors of Hiroshima. She endured 27 operations to correct the terrible burns on her face caused by the bomb.
ピカッと光ったその光は本当にこれが放射能ですね。
I never expected it, looking up at the sky, the beautiful splash of light, and at the same time my face was swelling, and I thought, I'm going to die. But if I died, I couldn't see my mother again, and I started walking toward ground zero. To myself, I said goodbye to my mother. And then the wind blew me away. I found myself buried under rocks from my stomach to my head, and I heard people crying for help, but no help came. I heard my mother calling my name, Michiko, Michiko. It was my mother who found me amidst the brutality of war. When she pulled me out, I saw hell all around me. This one bomb changed our whole life. It was like being in hell while still alive. Now Hiroshima is beautiful. Children cannot believe the bomb was dropped here. The city is beautiful, but we still have victims, hibakusha, and I want to tell people the truth of what happened.
知るっていうことの大切さをこれからの子どもたちに話しておきたいと思いました。それは今に現在に至ってますね。多くの人に知るっていうことの大切さを今教えております。
Now I teach people the truth so that we may never have war again. I want to continue this until I die. I want people to know the word peace and how valuable life is. It's always the children who get hurt in war. I don't want children to be the victims of war anymore. So until I die, I will do my best.
You are watching Profonde TV with host Phyllis Haynes.
The clip you just saw was made by author, filmmaker, and poet James Hilgendorf, a man devoted to making sure we never forget about the dangers of nuclear weapons.
Phyllis, I had done a lot of video work before. I produced travel films and documentaries. And in 2007, I had come across David Krieger, who's the president of the Nuclear Age Peace Foundation down in Santa Barbara, California, who's been doing work to try nuclear abolition for decades, one of the top people. And then at the same time, I've been practicing Buddhism for about 45 years, a member of the Soka Gakkai International, which is a very big international organization now, many members, peace organization too. And originally this organization, the Soka Gakkai, was founded by two great Japanese educators during the 1930s. And then during the Second World War, there was enormous pressure put upon all religious organizations in Japan to conform to the military government and Shinto religion, which was tied in with the government. And Makaguchi and Toda, who were the first two presidents, refused to go along with that, and they were arrested as thought criminals and imprisoned. And the first president, Tsunetsuburo Makaguchi, died there in prison after about a year and a half. The second president got out at the end of the Second World War and started rebuilding the organization, trying to build an organization for peace and happiness for people. In 1957, just a few months before he died, he met with 50,000 youth in Japan at a big meeting at a stadium. And the main thrust of his whole, you might say, passing the baton to these youth was to eliminate, totally eliminate the nuclear weapons from the face of the earth. That was his message. And he wanted to go really deeper. Then, you know, there were movements to try to have nuclear abolition and talks and stuff, but he wanted to go really deeper into this thing to try to really get people to recognize that there's some kind of fundamental darkness in all our lives that is creating this kind of thing, and to the fact that we could even have the thought that we could push a button and annihilate hundreds of thousands or maybe millions of people was just the most ultimate absolute evil. But it's something that has to be individually, we have to root out within our lives, you know. So anyway, in 2007 was the 50th anniversary of this talk and that Toda gave. And I thought to myself, I got to do something. So Phyllis, 2007 was the 50th anniversary of this proclamation that Toda gave. And I thought to myself, I have to do something also about atomic weapons and nuclear waste and all that. So I made some connections, and I flew into Hiroshima and had set up a meeting with the mayor of Hiroshima, who was involved with many cities around the world to try to declare nuclear safe zones. And we had a conversation, I recorded it, and then through the museum, I was set up with two hibakusha, survivors of the atomic bomb, and I recorded them. And I came back and I talked to, interviewed quite a few other people about nuclear weapons in Oregon and California and elsewhere. And I put together about a 40-minute video. And then I thought, I've always felt like with my video work, anybody can kind of make a video, but it's kind of, what can I do with this thing now? I've got this video. So I sent out individual emails to thousands of individuals and organizations around the United States and Canada. And what prompted this, I was trying to create a week in April of 2007 when we could have some discussions about nuclear weapons. I was prompted by this by an article that was I came across in the Saturday Review in 1946 by Norman Cousins, who was a great editor for 30 years of the Saturday Review. And in this thing, he said, you know what I think? I think we ought to take a whole week in this country and have what we might call a national concentration week. And everybody could get together and we could talk about all of the big problems that we're facing and somehow raise people's awareness of what's going on. So I found this very interesting. So I sent out these emails and I offered to supply a free video of this thing that I had made on Hiroshima. And that we, in April of 2007, during this 1 week, we would have a discussion. They could pull together their groups, kind of centered on this video, and have a real deep discussion about nuclear weapons, nuclear waste, etc. So I got about 125 groups around the country to get involved, and we did this event. And then I took this video and broke it into a couple parts and put it up on YouTube. And as of date, about 500,000 people have viewed these things. And I had it go out some other ways too. But this was kind of my effort to make some kind of effort towards myself getting involved in nuclear weapons. And I've been involved ever since. Even the Soka Gakkai has been involved with ICAN, who the International Committee for the Abolition of Nuclear Weapons, which just received the Nobel Peace Prize. And so we've been working together to work all this stuff. And maybe that'll give you a little background of what I was doing.
Well, I appreciate the background. What's fascinating is that I think there are generations of people who hear the words atomic energy or nuclear power or nuclear weapons, but unless they've really paid attention, may not know about the horror of Nagasaki or Hiroshima. I found you by looking at your videos on YouTube. And so I would like you, just for the sake of history, talk about what it was. What did the survivors tell you? What was it really like?
The one lady that I interviewed was a lovely woman, older woman, a very bright face, although at the time of the bombing, she was in Hiroshima with her mother. And it was like everything changed in a matter of seconds. Where Hiroshima stood, after about 10 seconds, there was nothing. 60,000 buildings were totally leveled. They have that one building that's still standing there, the dome, but everything else was gone. Enormous shock waves, heat waves rolled through after that. Absolutely incinerating people. Their internal organs boiled off in a second. That's what kind of thing that she was involved in. Somehow she survived. She was buried under rubble, and her mother somehow found her and pulled her out. And this woman had 24 operations on her face up to that point. By the way, Norman Cousins was really an amazing person. He took a lot of these, maybe two dozen of these hibakusha who were devastated and burned and everything, and he brought them to the United States for deep surgery, continuing surgery. Amazing man. Anyway, she talked about her experience of that, and then the main thing that she was talking about was children, and she never ever wanted to see this happen again, ever again, because it was the children that were destroyed, and without any kind of whatever going on, they were just obliterated. The second person that I interviewed was an older gentleman. I think he was about 75 at the time, and he had been involved in the bombing too. And I was so moved by him because he said that every day was pain, was utter pain to him. He had burns all over his body, keloid burns. His one hand was fused together. He had all kinds of internal problems that kept him going to the hospital constantly. And he was in pain every day, and he wondered, why should I continue living? But then he realized that he had a mission to really stand up, to really relay this to future generations, especially the young people, to make them aware of what went on. And not only that, but encourage them that the way to change some of this was for every single person to do something, to take some kind of step. If we don't do anything, nothing happens, zero happens. But he was encouraging you, find something, find some way to make a dent in this, and to really, maybe just the way you relate to people, in your daily life, or something you can do through an organization or whatever, but to do something. And this is how he lived his life through this pain every day, was trying to deeply encourage people. I was very encouraged. I was really humbled by his whole thing. And you realize now we have these weapons on, many of them are on hair trigger alert between Russia and the United States especially. These weapons now have multiple warheads on the rockets. Each one of these warheads is hundreds or thousands of times even more deadly than the bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So we're talking about something that's deeply, deeply distressing, that the fact that we have these weapons. I think myself, yes, more people should be aware of this. And I'm always reminded of Harriet Beecher Stowe. During the Civil War, just prior to the Civil War, she said, I didn't think I had any need to be involved in this question of slavery, etc. And then she said, then I woke up, I said, I have to do something. So she wrote this book, Uncle Tom's Cabin, which became an international bestseller. Abraham Lincoln said that once met her, and he said, oh yeah, you're the lady that started the Civil War. But she had an enormous impact. But why she wrote this book, the whole tenor of this was that Christianity and slavery are incompatible.
I think I'm going to interrupt you there because you're making a key point, but I just don't want to leave the original premise of our conversation. I will have you back to go further into that topic as well. But one of the things I want to ask you about is the built-in conflict between protecting democracy, building deterrence, keeping people safe, and at the same time, ending nuclear weapons. How do you balance this in your head?
That's a difficult question. We have this idea that nuclear weapons, and this idea has grown up since the Second World War, that to have these weapons, like Russia has weapons, we have weapons, we need these weapons to prevent the other side from ever using them, which is just incomprehensible when you think about it, because just some little thing, some little mistake. We've had mistakes when we almost let loose all of these weapons and annihilated millions of people. So this idea that we have to, and now Korea has this idea. Other countries want to have nuclear weapons because they feel if I have nuclear weapons, then nobody's going to attack me with nuclear weapons. I'm part of this club. But as long as these weapons exist, they will eventually be used. And that's just because of human nature and because of the fact that we're going to stumble onto some situation where we can use it. The fact that the United States has these nuclear weapons and refuses any other country to have them is kind of strange, because it puts us in a special position. We're the only ones who can have nuclear weapons. So why can't another country have nuclear weapons also? And this is their thinking, they want to be part of the nuclear club. But these weapons are, we have to get rid of them. We have to get rid of them. And the only way that we're going to get rid of them is through people and people's demand that these weapons are going to be abolished. And so it has to come up from people, I think, really. And it's coming up through a lot of organizations and different people, but it's got to filter up until it makes an impact. And somehow we, through people, through organizations, that we get to the point where we sit down and we try to figure out how to do that.
I'm going back to James Hilgendorf just for a moment. I have a nosy question to ask you. What's it like to be a man of peace? Has it been hard to hold this? Being a Buddhist requires some discipline. So how do you handle your instincts in terms of anger or resentment or any of the emotions that trigger us? How do you handle that in yourself?
I handle it. That's a really good question. And I would say, how do I handle it? I feel like it's a war every day. I feel it's a battle every day against maybe your more darker impulses and your higher impulses. And it takes work. It takes individual work. It takes discipline, like you say. Why do I practice this Buddhism? It's because we have a practice of chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, which is the very core of Buddhism, which basically comes down to the fact that every single person has this incredible life within them, a great life of compassion, of caring for other people, of wisdom and life force. And so this practice enables us to daily bring this up. But again, it's a never-ending battle. I have crazy thoughts that go through my head. I get depressed. I go into despair sometimes. I have problems with other people, but I try to work on myself daily. I think that's the only way we can do it is I have to work on myself again. I have to go back to myself. Yeah.
Well, I tell you, I feel just so grateful that whatever forces had me discover you on YouTube. I'm very grateful. You're also a poet. Can you read one of your poems as we close off this program?
Absolutely, Phyllis. And I want to say what an amazing job that you are doing, really trying to do what you're doing. And very few people have that kind of compassion and understanding and ability to interact with people that you're doing right now with your work. Thank you. This is a poem called During the Dark Hours. I'm just reading from a book. Flowers have bloomed during the night. A lovely bouquet this morning, though the night before, blooms were closed, seemingly dead. Finished growing. Transformation took place during the dark hours. Sometimes we wind our way up from the depths. There is no light, the hidden sun in our heart leading the way, pushing up through overwhelming darkness, dead ends, doubt and despair, the dream never dying, hope invincible, to bloom as stunning beauties in the light.
Thank you, James Hilgendorf. I really look forward to future conversations with you, and my wish is that your work continues. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much, Phyllis. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Join us for Profonde TV on princetontv.org.